Nicole Obeid is here to talk to us about research priorities, and I'm so glad you're here. You want the standing mic?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? There we go. So honored to be here and to speak with all of you today. I didn't get a chance to be here for the full day, but it sounds like it was a wonderful, wonderful day full of lots of knowledge exchanged. I'm glad I can participate in that. Just quickly, I am a experimental psychologist from Ottawa, Canada, and I've had the privilege and honor of working in a pediatric eating disorder program at a children's hospital for over the last decade. And what's really neat about that is that I get to spend half my time as a researcher and half my time as a clinician. And what that has afforded me is the opportunity to hear from the families and the clinicians that I work alongside over all of these years, you know, the things that they think is wrong with our treatment, what's going really well, the gaps, really great ideas for treatment, just incredibly rich information that never makes it into the research field. And I was really, I was very passionate about the idea about all of that knowledge experience needs to make it into the research world. It's not just about engagement, it has to come into the research world. And so I've embarked on this new sort of line of work where I'm doing what's called patient-oriented research. And that's new in Canada, where we're trying to involve all of those with lived experience in the research process from inception to knowledge translation. And so we embarked on a process where we did a national level project where we sought out to identify with all of the stakeholders across Canada what are the top 10 research priorities for those affected by eating disorders. And I won't bore you with the details of the methodology, but the tidbits or the nuggets that I'd really like to pull out is that we brought together an equal proportion of those across the country who have lived experience, their parents or caregivers, informal caregivers I like to call them, and then formal caregivers, so the healthcare professionals that treat this disorder. We brought them all together to help us identify those top 10 research priorities. And that's such a different stance from the way that we normally do research, because who normally gets to decide what research gets to get done? It's researchers or it's industry. And so this was a different way of looking at it. And we spent a year doing this process. It was an incredibly consensus-building process where lots of voices. We had a steering committee who wrote a grant with me to get this research funded with a very small amount of money, so I was very interested to hear how you got some money, Dr. Bullock. That quilt, that's a great idea. But we came together and we did this project from inception. So literally on my steering committee who guided all of this work was, I don't know if you folks are aware of her, Wendy Presco, who's the founder of NEED in Canada, which is the National Initiative for Eating Disorder. It's a parent advocacy group. She's alongside with me. We created this project from inception and she carried it out with me till the end, alongside with other partners and lots of national partners as well. So those priorities are available on the website. I can send that around, yep, and share with you guys that. I do want to leave you with it. Everyone's okay? Just a few nuggets of what we learned. So that process of coming together to build those top 10 research priorities in the field of eating disorders across Canada was a beautiful process where we brought everybody together. And we spent the years doing a lot of things over the phone, because most of you know Canada's a huge geographic country. The field of eating disorders is small. So we spent a lot of time talking and trying to figure out all of these things over the phone with all of those stakeholders involved. But then this process terminated with a one-day face-to-face meeting where we brought 30 individuals of those most touched by the illness, is what I say, together to really define those top 10 research priorities. And I have to say the nugget that I really want you guys to take home with is I've been doing this kind of work for over a decade, and there was nothing like that feeling in that room when we all got together and talk and have our voices being heard and being really respectful, and it was really powerful. So my plug is anybody interested in patient-oriented research and how that process works, please look into it. I'm happy to speak to anybody, and please embark in it, because it is so worthwhile, and it really is. It brings a lot of meaning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? We have some questions.
Hang on, coming over.
Are you able to quickly summarize the 10?
Oh, yeah.
or maybe a few of the major ones?
Yes, I can, very quickly. So the first one is, of course, can you guys figure out the most effective treatments for those affected by eating disorders? That's not a shock to anybody in this room. We do not know that yet. The second, and it was ranked ordered, 1 to 10 was ranked ordered, where number 1 was decided upon by all of these stakeholders, and we engaged the full community across Canada. So there was 150 individuals who participated in this process. So number 1 was that. Number 2 was, we need to figure out, and this shocked me, we need to figure out how best to help our informal caregivers know how to help those that are struggling. And that to me was really striking. I did not know that that was such a high level priority. I knew it was a priority, but not ranked number 2 by everybody in the room, not just the parents, not just those with lived experience, the professionals, the researchers, the policy folks, everybody in the room. That was really striking. There was a few other tidbits, what do we do about comorbidities? How do we treat them? How do we work with those? What do we do with folks who are readmitted to hospital over and over again? Do we need to treat them differently? Those kind of things. But the list is there, and we're also, we have a publication that is under review right now, so hopefully that'll be out soon.
Another question?
We have one here.
Hi. I was looking at some of the posters at the conference yesterday, and I felt like in terms of research, one of the drawbacks or faults was that the majority of the population was white. And I was wondering if the research priority, if there's addressing that sort of outreach towards people of color, or as well as I feel like there's a stigma that eating disorders are champagne problems. So I was wondering if you're also addressing any economic disparities between people who suffer with eating disorders.
Lovely. So, as most of you know, Canada is a very multi-ethnic country. We did not put either of those variables into the equation for the whole process that we did. So, we didn't ask folks what ethnic background they were. We invited everybody. We didn't ask anybody from different class. We didn't ask any of that. It was whoever wanted to be a part of this process was able to participate. I'm not sure how we don't spend a lot of time in Canada doing a lot of that sort of breakdown. I think it's just a little bit different, but does that address your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh.
I appreciate your question. I was also going to ask a question around that same issue of race and ethnicity. How do we then get people into the conversation, people of color in particular I'm thinking of? I know we have that trouble in the United States, I assume, but I have observed over the years, because I've been coming to these conferences, my daughter,
That's
Laura,
my mom.
and I'm very proud of her and her work. But I notice, well, look around. Not only there are no people that I can identify who are, say, African American or, well, yes, there's one there.
Kind of a pale imitation of one, but yeah.
Or impoverished. But what I would like to know from anyone is how will we address that? I think it's an important issue.
It's huge. And Shaviz, I think, brought that a little bit up to us, and I think it's really important. It was a theme. Also, I think Lisa brought it up about AED. This is a problem, and a lot of people aren't in the room, but literally need the same things. And I think all of our organizations are struggling with how to do that, because we're just struggling to do anything. But it's this last year has come to the fore, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot about this one, but we are all failing at this, and we all are trying to do better.
I have a suggestion.
Yes, Mom?
For the record, this is why I don't let her hold the mic. And that's my mom.
My suggestion is people of the groups we're talking about that may need some help also. If they look around and don't see themselves represented within the ranks of the clinicians and so on, they're not going to come and talk to you about it, most likely. Yeah.
I'm also not white.
I'm also not white. I'm also Lebanese as well.
So I thought I'd just say something. I think that I come from the Far East. I'm a first-generation immigrant. And I think there's potentially also, there's a potential to patronize as well. To sort of say, ooh, what are eating disorders like when you're Chinese? And I worry about that. And in my research, the approach I took was to look at the diversity. And do you know what? I found the whites as diverse as, other cultures. I did struggle, like most researchers, to get people who are not white in my samples. But even among the white, there's a lot of diversity in family cultures, in how you approach things, how you function. And I wonder whether that might be a better way of looking at it. And it might be that in certain cultures, like I've done research in Singapore, where we function very much more as a family unit. And that's quite challenging to the standard Anglo-Saxon individualistic autonomy kind of approach. And actually to challenge it from that way may also be useful. But absolutely, I totally agree with you that it is overrepresented in research samples in particular. And we need to get a lot more mindful as to how we do that. But there are a range of approaches to that.
Just, I want you to know, this is not counting against your time. You were on time. We went off topic.
That's okay.
Thank
Thank you very much.